welcome to this episode of Athletics for Life podcast. We're your host, Jeff and CD, and this week's guest is great. And we're going to talk all about eSports. You might notice that our backgrounds are missing. We did have a little bit of technical difficulty in getting this interview organized, but don't worry, the talk is amazing, and I think you guys will really enjoy it.
Yeah, we're welcoming Isaac Peña on the podcast today. A while ago, we tried esports with our schools here in Mongolia, and we did a quick presentation at the ACAMIS conference. And Martin Halpin, the athletics director from WAP, Western Academy of Beijing, introduced us to Isaac. He's the esports manager or in charge of esports at the Western Academy. And we're going to talk with Isaac today about esports, the benefits of esports, and he will tell you all about it.
Yeah, I really look forward to this one. It's a great interview, and I think you guys will really enjoy. So enjoy.
So my name is Isaac Peña. People call me Isaac. I'm from Costa Rica originally, and I've been in China for 14 years. I work for the Western Academy of Beijing, and I'm in charge of esports and design. So that's what I do. I do esports, and I'm a design teacher.
And middle school soccer, right, Simon? For Isaac?
Yeah. Actually, that was my background before I moved into esports. I did traditional sports all my life. I did soccer since I was 4 years old, all the way until I was 18. Then after that, I became a football coach. And I did some semi-professional football coaching before.
So how did you go from that into esports? What was the transition like?
It was actually a very interesting transition because, well, I did work on TV for several years before here in China. I did work in TV here for 5-6 years, and I host activities. So once upon a time in 2018, there was this Tencent activity for this game, and they needed a host. And it was here in Beijing, and it was literally like 200 meters from my place. So they asked me, like, do you want to come and host this activity? And I was like, yeah, why not? I had no idea about games. So I started learning how to play the game so I could actually host the activity. So the game here in China is very popular. It's a MOBA game. It's called Honor of Kings. So Honor of Kings called me to host their activity in 2018, and since then I fell in love with it, man. It was an amazing experience. Imagine that it was my first encounter with professional gaming, as in electronic sports. It was for me amazing to see thousands of people coming to watch people play games, right? And it just caught me. It caught me, and then I just decided to stay, and I kept growing, and I kept working on that, and that's how I started. Started everything 3 years ago, and everything has been really. I've been really lucky. I've been very blessed, having great friends at Tencent and great friends at Asian Games. So yeah, it's been a journey.
So I was very skeptical at first, and one of our colleague ADs, he mentioned it a while ago, especially during the pandemic, like, should we do something with that? I did a bit more research, and I'm from a soccer, real sports background. So esports were like, well, kids behind the computer, we're doing that already 24/7 now. Were you skeptical at first, Isaac?
Oh, of course, man. As I mentioned, I did football, I did soccer all my life. So imagine that when they told me, like, okay, gaming, I'm like, that's not real sport. I'm so sorry. That is not a real sport. You need to sweat if you want to call it a sport, at least. You need to move a little bit. And it changed my life completely, because everything that I did in order to become a football player, I've seen esports professional athletes doing exactly the same. Going through the training, going through the nutritionist, going through analyzing video, pre-game, post-game, everything that I did in order to become a semi-professional football player. they're doing it in order to become professional esport athletes. So yeah, no, at the beginning, everyone is skeptical. You got to remember that at least us, we grew up with gaming is just taking your Super Nintendo or your PlayStation
Uh-huh.
at home and then just playing yourself, right? And your parents, at least my parents, were always like, you cannot play more than 2 hours. And I was like, no, mom, I want to play. It was not a sport in that moment, it was a hobby. And right now, through the whole industry and how everything has evolved, right now we're in front of a millions of dollars industry that it's growing exponentially right now in front of our eyes.
So how did you go from hosting an event to implementing it at your school? How did you go? Like this thing is really cool. There's a ton of people. It's really interesting. I want to do more. And now you're the esports coordinator, esports
the esports
manager.
person.
Yeah, the esports person.
Mr.
How did you
Esport.
do that? Like, how did you get that going?
So imagine that here at the Western Academy of Beijing, we love innovation, man. Like for us, education is something that is alive. Education is about evolving and seeing things that we've been doing for 2 years, 3 years. Let's not even mention 20 years ago. Things that we've been doing for 4 years and then just start questioning ourselves. How has the world changed? How can we apply this? How can we make it better? So imagine that I brought this up to our athletic director, Martin Halpin. And Martin told me, you know what? I've been looking for doing this already for a while. So I told him about my experience, and then he was super motivated. And then we started looking around, and Martin found a great tournament that we could participate. So that's how everything started. Everything started by us just looking around and finding a tournament and finding a game and creating after school activities. Uh, the school has supported us amazingly, man. Like the whole school is in sync with this. Stephen Taylor, our director of innovation and learning, Marta Medved, our school director, everyone has been supporting everything. Imagine that when we made our first esport activity, we had the whole place packed with
Wow.
people, students, teachers. Everyone came to watch because it was something so foreign to everyone, right?
Mhm.
So we thought, you know what? We need to connect it with education. We cannot just let people think that esports and gaming are the same thing. And us as a school, we have the responsibility to educate not only the students, but the staff and the parents at the same time, and what this industry is. So that's how everything started. I brought it up, my experience, and then thanks God, I've found a great place here at WAB where people is like always, let's do that. Yeah, sounds like a great idea. Let's go. And we're really hands-on, man. I think that that's what makes us special. We have the confidence on just like, do we know how to do it? Well, let's research about how to do it. And it's been 3 years and things are going really well.
That's great. Yeah. So I need to give Martin a little shout out. We did a tournament a while ago in March, FIFA Soccer. So that was a trial for us, and it went really well actually. And then we were doing a presentation about that at the Acamis conference.
Yes.
And Martin came to our presentation, and he's like, "Yeah, we are already doing this a long time, but here's Isaac's contact. Talk to him, because he's our esports man." So thank you, Martin, for doing that. Um, what kind of? So you talked about this tournament you joined, which is the Fuse
Yes.
Cup, right? Am I correct?
Yes. You're correct.
Are
We
you
are part of the
also
Fuse Cup.
Fuse Cup? Yeah, I want to know more about that. Are you also organizing your own tournaments within your own divisions in Beijing?
Okay. So right now, what we're doing here at WAB, we take part of internationally at the Fuse Cup. The
Mm.
Fuse Cup is an Australian tournament for esports in schools, where they do tournaments on Nintendo Switch. So what we do is that we coordinate on the tournaments with the other schools. We support them. We help each other out. It has created a great community.
Mm.
I need to say that without the Fuse Cup, our program wouldn't have evolved into what it is right now. because it provided us with a platform.
Yeah.
It provided us with the support that we needed at the beginning. Believe me that when you just start doing something like esports, it's scary, man. It's not that easy.
I know.
Because you want to approach it. You don't know how to approach it. Do I approach it as a subject? Do I approach it as a sport, as like an athletic program? How do I approach this? So the Fuse Cup people have like given us so much help, and like thanks to Dan Martinez is like the person that's in charge of the Fuse Cup. Dan has been amazing with us, amazing. So right now, in terms of school internally, what we do is that we organize a lot of tournaments, but we want to do these tournaments not to focus on gaming and not to focus on the game, but to focus on the whole esport experience. What is the esport experience? The esport experience for us here at WAB is not only esports about the athletes, but it's about the creators of the game, the designers of the tournaments. It's about the casters of the game. It's about the advertisement of it. What turned gaming into an industry? And it was creating and manning everything with so many amazing people that are passionate about games. The kids in here right now, we have a tournament coming in at the end of May. It was a game completely created by the students. So they used Minecraft, and then they created their own world. They created their own rules. They made a modification, and they created a game. And we have testers, and the kids put it out, and the other students come and try their game. And we have a tournament coming in. Our casters are all students from our school. The live stream that we do for our game is again student directed. The hosting of the game is student directed. The lights, the music, everything is student directed. So we don't want people to think of esports only as people playing games. We want them to understand, if you're passionate about games, we can always find a place for you to grow. If you like drawing, you can help drawing. If you like coding, you can help coding. If you're just like me and we have the sense of hosting and casting, you can come and host and cast and be part of this beautiful new industry.
So you guys kind of take it away from, like it's not even so much about the athletes that are playing the game, but it's almost like a theater production that's going on, right? Like you've got the lighting and the stage crew, and so you've kind of taken it even to that next level, past just, hey, we have an esports team, like we have an esports school. It seems like that's amazing.
Yeah. It is important just to capture the kids at the beginning, right? Because the students that you're going to have at the beginning, and that was our experience, are those kids that they want to game. They just want the gaming experience of it. And of course, that's what most of the parents are scared about. Like, I don't want my child just to go to school so he can game with the teacher for 2 hours. That's not esports. That is gaming. So when we are working about esports, then what we do is that we capture those kids that they are interested in the game, that interested in gaming, and then we start showing them what we can do as an esport. They can find their own parts that they like. We had this student that he was really into gaming, but he was really into music as well. So he's in charge of the music for the tournaments.
That's awesome.
Of course, because at the end of the day, we're teaching them that it's not only about being in front of the screen playing every single day. It is part of it, but it's a very small part of the whole game industry. It is a very small part that very few people are going to become esport athletes. It is a very, very, very small percentage of people that will do that. But behind that, there are thousands, millions of people that they're working in the esports industry. I was extremely blessed and very lucky to be part of the Asian Games esports event for the last Asian Games in Jakarta. I hosted the activity, and it was amazing just to see the amount of people that need to get together in order to put a production the size of Asian Games. So imagine that we're going around hundreds, thousands of people just for the 20, 30, maybe 50 athletes that they're going to be on stage. So people need to understand that esports is not only about the people that is playing. That's just what you can see. But behind them, there's hundreds of groups of people that they are determined on bringing a great experience.
Yeah, that's interesting because you changed my perception on it a little bit because we hosted a FIFA tournament and I was like, well, it has to be a sport kind of game, which it doesn't, right? We had 4 kids in the end, but the boys and four boys they know more about this stuff than we do, so they did a lot of work already. So my question more is like, what kind of role does esport has in your school right now? You know, kids do production, they have academics, they do sports. You know, they have a lot to do, and you seem to bridge the gaps between those. So if a student plays under 19 soccer, can he
Yeah.
do esports next to that, or is it just how do they balance it? What kind
So
of role?
right now, the kids that they're participating right now for a Rocket League tournament. Right now, the Fuse Cup is going into a Rocket League tournament. Those kids, half of them are into the musical. So they come to Rocket League practices after musical. And the other half of them, they have other commitments with the arts. Being part of the esports team is not going to deprive you from the opportunity of being part of a traditional sport or being part of the arts. It's just the same as being part of any other club, I believe. And at the end of the day, the more kids that we have from more about bigger variety of backgrounds and experiences and hobbies, the better that it's gonna be for the whole industry. Because as you mentioned, sometimes the kids know more than us in these kind of things. And that is the first piece of advice that I want to give to anyone who wants to do an esports project. It's totally fine not knowing. You got to remember that the esport industry as we know it started 7, 8 years ago. If you ask me in 2011, the size of what League of Legends, which is one of the biggest games that we have in esports right now, the size of League of Legends 10 years ago and the size of League of Legends right now, it's completely two different beasts. So esports, as we know, it's very new. Not knowing is normal. Asking the students to research, doing your own research, going around experiencing is totally fine. I always love explaining to people that this is just like going through a very dark forest. You know that in there, there's going to be trees, there's going to be animals, it's very dark, and you probably just have like one flashlight. So what you have to do is get into the forest and you just trust that if you keep walking through, you're going to get through the forest in one moment. Right now, there's a lot of people inside of that dark forest, not only myself. There's people in Australia, there's you guys in Mongolia, there's a lot of people in Europe, in America. All of us, we're inside of this huge forest that is not that dark anymore. And we just need to help each other out. If we help each other out and we really create a community that believes in the value of taking esports into education, it's going to be great for not only the students, but for us, for the parents, and for the whole industry.
How do you deal with kind of parents that are skeptical, maybe about kids playing games? And I know you have a lot of kids that are involved with the music and the production, but what about the ones that are actually playing the game? You know, like you have to have the athletes, of course, to compete. So I'm just curious, I guess it's kind of twofold, my train of thought. You know, what does a practice look like and the skills you're developing to then kind of appease the parents who are maybe concerned that they're just playing games?
It is extremely a tricky question in terms of, in education, you've always have every single family has a different way of learning and a different way of teaching. Some people believe that mathematics is the most important subject, and some other people are going to think like, actually reading is the most important. So language and literature is the most important. So each different parent and each different family is going to be a different world. So I've had parents that have told their kids, nope, you cannot take part of that because school is not for gaming. As I have parents that have come to me in parent-teacher conferences and have asked me, how do I help my daughter to get better at the game?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, you have 5 minutes? And she's like, yeah, of course. And they take their notes and then they write down and they completely engaged. The only way that we can do is just to keep doing what you guys are doing. I do believe that those parents need help from people like you guys, putting podcasts together, getting interviews with people, getting these experiences out of the classroom and putting them out where the parents and everyone else can actually reach to them. That's what we need to do. We need to get more of these activities. What you guys are doing right now is extremely valuable for the whole project. You guys are just over there on the front lines, just telling people, you know what? We found this experience over there in Beijing. Do you want to know about it? The more that parents hear about this, the more that they're going to be like, okay, let's give it a try. How do we work with skeptical parents? The only thing that we can do is just to try to share our experiences with them. We tell them and we talk to them. I tell them that me personally, I game every single day. And my colleagues can say, can give faith of that, because when I'm in the school bus, that's my 30 minutes for keep practicing. When I'm in the school bus coming to work and going back home. That's my 1 hour a day that I need to keep doing to practice. And it does not affect me as a professional, does not affect me as a person, because I understood about the balance of it in life. That's what we need to do with parents, to let them know that there's a balance, and that sometimes just by holding the kids' hands and telling them, let's do this together, the kids actually get to learn more than just telling them, don't do that. But again, each parent, each family is a different world. And the only thing we can do is to respect their point of view and then to try to educate.
In a lot of podcasts, Isaac, we interview a lot of athletic directors and people in sports, and all they do and what they're really good at is being able to promote their programs and their passion and what they're good at. And on LinkedIn, on the websites, and I think with esports too, you have to promote it, the skills and what the kids learn. How do you do that? Do you do a lot of on the website, or do you have a special esports website for WAB, or how do you do that?
So right now what we're doing is that we created the esports program as an after-school activity here at WAB.
Okay.
At WAB, after-school activities are very strong. I do believe that it's one of our strongest points here in our school, what makes us different than others. We have departments completely in charge of these. So that's the way how we get everyone to know about the activities. We just put them all out there as if it would be the same value as we put into playing an instrument. We put it as to playing a sport or to do esports. So everything gets the same amount of encouragement and advertisement. That makes everyone feel like we're not taking on favorites, and actually we want the students to learn as a whole. We do not do a lot of advertisement, more than whenever that we have news of tournaments, we just take some photos and then we put it out just for the community to know what's happening. Hopefully, after the regulations due to COVID are going to loosen up a little bit more, we'll be able to bring parents in to see what we've done during this time in terms of esports activities. The productions that the kids have put together in this last year have been top quality, man, top quality. And I have seen professionals, and what I have seen the kids do is completely amazing. Amazing.
One thing that one of the criticism I got, we, like Jeff had mentioned, we organized our own small FIFA tournament just with our schools.
Yeah.
And some of the feedback that I got from my students was, why didn't you do this game, or why didn't you do that game, right? Like they don't have one of the problems we had is only one person signed up with an Xbox, And
Yeah.
so like they were really into it, but no one else had an Xbox. And so
Yes.
they couldn't participate. How do you kind of choose your games, and what variety do you have so you have enough, but not so many that you can never practice them all? Or do you know what I mean? Like,
Of
how do
course,
you
of course.
balance that?
You see, I think that the choice of the game needs to be thought into a different aspects. Number one, we are school. There is a kind of a game that is appropriate for school time, and there's a kind of a game that is not appropriate for school time. One of the biggest categories in esports are first-person shooters. We don't do any first-person shooters here at WAB because we do not believe that's an appropriate game for the school. But we do a lot of strategy games. We do a lot of MOBAs. We choose games where we're going to limit the violence levels into it, but at the same time, they're going to be mainstream games. That way we can have more students involved. And at the same time, it needs to be affordable, and we need to be able to provide the students with opportunities if they do not have the consoles. The Fuse Cup and ourselves, we've decided to move into Nintendo Switch for middle schoolers, because we find that as a school is good for us, is we can afford to buy some Nintendo Switches that the students can use for practice. And at the same time, the cost of a Nintendo Switch is not as high if the students would need to buy one for themselves, if they would make a decision for that. We need to choose on those things when we think about the consoles. When we're thinking about the games, in my experience, start with mainstream games. That way you can get more students involved. And then after that, just start moving around, and then just find, okay, the kids, there's a bunch of 15, 20 students that they would like to have a small tournament of a very niche game. Why not? But at the beginning, you need to have something mainstream. It is the most important. Why we moved into Minecraft, because we have a super big Minecraft community here. And then I was like, well, why don't we do a Minecraft tournament? Immediately packed. We've had ups and downs. We opened a FIFA tournament ourselves for our FIFA league. We struggled a lot with numbers for our FIFA tournament. But for our Mario Kart tournament, the one where we participate in the Fuse Cup, the finals of the Mario Kart, we had 200 people in the theater watching the finals of Mario Kart. So that was so exciting to watch and so exciting to see. It was by far one of the happiest moments that we've had in esports here at WAB, because it's not only about the people who play the game, and you get the audience, you get kids, you get even teachers. I remember having the staff coming to me and saying, like, you know what? I didn't know what was happening, but it was so exciting. I loved the experience. I'm like, you see, it's for everyone. It's just a matter of educating every single person. Understand, giving it a try.
I get some questions from athletic directors like, how do you start, right? And we just so well, we do FIFA and then and ask the kids, what do you have? PlayStation, Xbox. What's the easiest way to start, Isaac?
The easiest way to start is to find one person who is highly motivated, and then just to try to get a small group of students just to start with that person. When I started the program, when we started the program here at WAP, we decided to use a mobile game. Okay. Because every single student has a mobile. So we just decided, let's get a mobile game so we don't need to think about the cost of a console. And then after that, let's just gather everyone that has that game and let's start like that. Then after that, we moved into Nintendo Switches, and then right now we're moving into PCs. The best way to start is by finding one person. Keep it very small. It doesn't need to be big. A lot of people believe that it needs to be big. If you have 5 kids and you have one teacher, you already have an esport program.
Yeah.
It's going to keep evolving. The first time that you have an esport activity, then after that your registering just goes skyrockets. because then the kids and the parents start being more involved and they're more interested. So my advice for everyone who would like to have a program: start small, start with a game, with a mainstream game, and start with something that not necessarily you need to be a master. You just need to be to be passionate about.
Yeah.
When we started in here, we chose the game that I normally host. So it was easy for me to be passionate about it because it's part of my personal life. So I was really passionate about it. The kids could feel that. And right now we have 45, 50 children inside of that program for that game.
Wow.
So yeah, it is amazing. It is amazing to see the progress of it, because when we started with grade 6s, and right now we have students all the way into grade 12.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of starting very small, very,
Yeah, for
very,
me,
very small.
Yeah, for me the thing was, we had 16 kids signed up and only 4 at the end, but
Yeah.
it was great because small was perfect, trial and error. And for me and for Scott, our editor, he was involved. He's like, how can we share this, right? So live stream, and so we use Twitch. So you might
Yes.
know all about Twitch. And in the end, I was like, how to do that? And we made a profile, and then the kids were like, we got this, don't worry. So they had their own profiles, and they had connect their PlayStation. They are so clever with that stuff, man.
I love when you say, like, and the kid said, I got this.
Yeah.
You know what? I am the esports person. I don't even dare to call myself a coordinator or something, because the kids do the 95% of the job. I'm just the adult in the room, just checking that everyone is safe. The kids coach each other. The kids do the research. The kids are setting up the live stream. The kids are setting up everything. The only thing that I need to do, the only thing that I've got to do right now is just to coordinate with the Fuse Cup, coordinate with other schools, coordinate in terms of hardware, what we need to get, and the game itself. The kids are just doing it themselves, which is great, because that shows great leadership skills. The kids that they come to our esports program, they show leadership to a completely different level, in terms that they design the game, or they have their own coaches. If 2 kids have a game on Monday for Rocket League, there's going to be a high school kid that's going to come to coach them, and they're going to have their own console. They're going to set everything up, and me as an adult, the only thing I need to do is just to be right over there for them, just to supervise. So if you ask me who's in charge of this whole thing, me. The kids are, and that is the main idea of this, just to show them that they can do things on their own.
How do you live stream, Isaac? Is that
Well,
also with Twitch, or what kind of thing do you use?
we use our own live stream, program. We call it wab.livestream.edu. And then the students and the parents and everyone with the link can watch it.
Okay.
Due to the fact that we're in China, then it's difficult for us to use Twitch. So we decided to solve that by using our own live stream. We normally live stream in there our sports activities and our arts activities.
Yeah.
So we decided, well, if it is already there for athletics and esports is a sport, why don't we use our own live stream? And it's become great, because the kids that normally are in charge of the live stream for traditional sports have learned so much about how to live stream video games, because it's not only about the camera and the person. Now you have the camera, the person, and the screen.
Yeah.
So you get a third component in there that they have to sort out. During this whole year, we've got students just working on that on a weekly basis. And right now, we can live stream Nintendo Switch, we can live stream PC, and we can live stream mobile games.
One thing that's kind of been in my mind is, with athletics in traditional sports,
yes,
that can sometimes be an avenue to university, right? Like if you're a high level athlete, we've had some great interviews with Ethos Recruiting and kind of how to help students go that route. And one thing even that they've mentioned is esports and how it's kind of a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious, have you had any students who have maybe aspired to go that route to university for esports? And how has your program helped them, or potentially is helping students now who might go that route in the future?
So that is the next step that we have for our esports programming here. We have the next step to be able to contact possible universities that would be able to provide scholarships for esports programs, right? It's been difficult for the last 1 year and a half because we've been only here. We are not able to travel. We haven't been able to be in contact with other universities that they would like to do that. We have the contacts of the universities. We've been in conversations with them. We want to create an environment in where the students can understand that this, more than a hobby, can be a career, and not only as an athlete but as a designer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned to you guys about the mother that came to me and asked how she could make her daughter to be better at the game, right? That's because her daughter wants to design games. So her mom thinks the better that she's going to be at the game, the more passionate she's going to be about it. So the more that she's going to work towards her dream of designing games. There are scholarships for game designing as well. There are scholarships for everything, not only for athletes in esports. So it is important for us as a program. Our next step forward is, okay, what happens to those students after they graduate from high school? How can we provide to them with a different path if they want to keep pursuing this? How can we educate them in, okay, future experiences, future decisions? So yeah, right now we've already created a nice environment inside of the school. So I do believe that you're right. Our next step is going to be what happens after high school. How do we get into a university and using our esports experience? How can we use that in our favor? And I believe that again, is one of the reasons why esports and education must go hand in hand.
Yeah, you've mentioned already so many skills that these kids gain from esports, and when we organized our event and we did more research, right? You always look at the athlete's perspective, but
Yes.
you just pull it so much bigger. Like kids can go scholarships for designing, and that's also a really good way of promoting it with your administrator, right? It's not only the athletes, it's so much bigger than that, and that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
It is our pleasure, man. We're here to innovate. I do believe that is our strong suit. We need to innovate in education, and we're here to build a community. Anyone who's got a question can just reach out, and we will be more than glad just to help. Because when we stepped into that dark forest at the beginning, we were very scared, and right now we have a little bit of the idea of what the forest looks like. So we're here just to help people around.
Yeah, and especially those connections, Isaac. Do you see that too with your students? They connect with so many different kids from all over the world now, and that's just
Yes.
esports brings that, right? And that's awesome.
The social part of it is important. The community is what makes esport to be sport. The community behind it.
Isaac, what are some of your personal goals with esports moving forward? You mentioned like as a program, but you personally, what are some of your goals?
Well, there are Asian Games next year. So that's going to be my first goal. Hopefully, hosting Asian Games for 2022 for Hangzhou. That would be goal number one. Goal number two would be right after COVID COVID regulations are going to loosen up a little bit, being able to go back to casting and hosting international activities. In 2019, we had the opportunity to fly around Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia, China, just hosting activities for Tencent and Tencent Games. So that is my personal goal, just to get back there and host, because host needs to host. If I'm not hosting, I'm not a host no more. And it's part of my identity.
Same here. How do you see this evolve, the esports, in the next 5 to 10 years in the international school world? How do you see that? What's your vision on it?
You see, esports education is going to become not a subject. That is not going to happen in the next 5 and 10 years, same as football never became a subject or basketball never became a subject. But esport is going to be a widely received athletic sport. As in, when people's going to think about esports, they're not going to be thinking like, esports, is that really sport? But actually, they're going to think esports. It needs to be part of each athletic department inside of schools. I do believe that in 10 years, we're going to have so many schools, not only international schools, but public schools as well, just having esports as part of their athletic choices for the students. That's where I see it. And it's important that we educate the students and the parents right now, because the students right now are the ones that they're going to make the decisions about where esports is going to go in 10 years. Our grade 12s right now in 10 years are going to be 27, 28. They're going to be the ones making the decisions. So the only thing we can do right now is just to educate them about esports, so when they need to make a call, they can look back and be like, I remember about Mr. Isaac in esports during middle school and high school. So it's a good thing. That's what we need to do to influence for a positive outcome.
Oh, that's great. I guess we're kind of getting towards the end of our time. Do you have any final tips for us? Like we're still like kind of on the outskirts of that dark forest, double checking our batteries and our flashlight.
Follow the light. Follow the light.
Do you have any final tips for us? Just to get it off the ground.
You must help each other, and you must help the kids, for the kids to feel like this is their project. For me, that is critical in esports. We had our chance to play games when we were students, and right now it's their chance to understand that this program needs to be theirs. In the moment that the kids are going to be the ones making the decisions, when the student is going to be the one leading the program, that is the moment where more students are going to feel like I want a part of it. What we need to do is just to motivate, to influence, to make them passionate about this. And then after that, everything is going to start just rolling forward. The momentum is there. Us as leaders, what we need to do is just to take half of that leadership and then give it to the students and help them to be responsible and highly motivated. Keep them engaged. Have them play. Have them analyze. They are such an amazing group of learners. So in the moment that they understand that and they have the confidence and they can actually enjoy a subject like esports with all their passion, things are going to start moving forward faster and faster and faster. You guys already started the journey by having your first tournament, having your first group. Believe me, from now on, the hardest part is completely done.
We're in the forest.
You guys are already in the forest. So welcome.
Man, Isaac, thank you so much for sharing everything. You're very passionate about this. They are very lucky at WAB to have you over there. The Fuse Cup, is that something for us to join next year? Is that a good start?
Please. Fuse Cup would be a great place. I advise everyone, if you want to start on esports and you're thinking about middle school and high school, Fuse Cup, it is your first option. Great times. It works perfectly with most of our time zones here in Asia. It is the place where I always tell people that they need to go. So in order to contact with the Fuse Cup, contact through myself or contact to Dan Martinez, and then just Google the Fuse Cup, and then you will get it.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you so much, Isaac.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you very much.
This has been great, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Cheers. Thank you for having me.
All right. So we just finished our interview with Isaac Peña at the Western Academy of Beijing, WAB, all about esports. And it was great. That was a really kind of perspective changing discussion with Isaac. For me, like the big takeaway, the thing that I kept kind of thinking about while we were doing our interview is, even if I never do anything with esports, in the future, which I would hope too. But even if I didn't, if my athletic program looked like their esports program with kids getting involved in other areas outside of just the sport, it would be an incredibly successful program, right? He mentioned multiple times that it's so much more than just competing at the sport, right? It's the same is true with traditional athletics, with basketball, with football, with any other sport. The number of people who are going to be successful in playing that sport is very, very small, at the next level in college and in pros, where there are millions of people who are athletic trainers, nutritionists, event organizers. And so there's kind of a world that is adjacent to that, right? So that way, if you are passionate about sports or esports, you don't necessarily have to be the best at the sport. You can still find an avenue to be involved in that. So that's kind of what I took away from it. The big thing is to kind of get my program to look more like a WAB's esports program.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you say esports, and in sports people think about running around, sweating. And now we always talk about athletics for life, podcast, or life skills. But when we first heard about esports, you still go back to that old way of looking at things, right? And I'm like, yeah, but these athletes just sitting around, because I remember when I was a kid sitting behind a console eating chips and Coca-Cola, right? That's what you have, that's what you think. So he really changed my perspective on, and maybe it's easier when you have kids in the building. Online is a bit hard to organize all that stuff. For us, it was difficult, but there's so many, esports is like a vehicle for these kids to go into all these different directions, right? It's the athletes are just a little part of it. And that was great. He shared so much good stuff. So I definitely need to look into that next year with that different perspective that Isaac shared with us.
Yeah, and I think too, just even with the Fuse Cup, with our event, we tried to organize it ourselves, which was fine, which is great. But I think kind of joining an existing tournament would be another avenue. It would kind of take some of the stress off from us, from having to organize a tournament, figure out who's going to participate, to saying, okay, in 2 months, there's a Rocket League tournament. In a few months, there's a League of Legends tournament, whatever tournaments that are already there. And then it's not us to figure out the game, to figure out what console, to figure out, who's going to participate. Are we going to practice? What are we going to do surrounding the event? Okay, the tournament's already being organized by somebody else. Who do we have that can participate? And then how can we as administrators help them in that process? I think would be really beneficial for us moving forward to make something like this happen.
And we're not all working at Western Academy Beijing. And Isaac, that's his job, and he's super passionate and good. But we work at smaller schools, and it was overwhelming for me and for us. Like, how do we start this, right? I think in the end we did a okay job. But something like the Fuse Cup can take that stress away from an AD who thinks about esports, but not sure how. Sign up for the Fuse Cup and then see how it's run, and then make a small step into organizing something yourself. Mm-hmm. And also something very interesting, when I thought about esports, well, we have to do FIFA. No, it's not about the specific sport, right? But that game, it's about so much more. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, and he mentioned so many different type of games, and it's all about connecting kids, giving them a opportunity to do the light or to do the live stream or to play or to, design stuff. Or he had kids making the games, right? That's just so much more. So again, it's an athletics for life kind of vehicle for these kids to seek new opportunities. So that's great.
Yeah, I just thought of this. There was a few years ago, I did it was an optional science fair. And so the kids could choose to participate. And one of the best ones that year was actually a group of somewhat lazy boys. Like in school, they were generally pretty lazy, but they put so much energy into their science fair project. They wanted to determine who was the best character in League of Legends. I think it was either League of Legends or Dota, I don't remember. And they gathered so much data, so much personal data of like, okay, this way we played this character 20 times. This is how many wins we had. This is how many kills we had. This is how much experience we gained. And like so many different metrics that then they could say like, okay, for me, the best character was so-and-so because I got the most experience per game. I got the most gold points, whatever. I don't play the game, so I don't really understand how the game works, but I could understand their metrics, right? And so they put so much effort and time, not only into playing the game, which they definitely enjoyed, but also then analyzing their results. Kind of like Isaac said, the pregame, the postgame. It was kind of like the postgame on steroids. They really just kind of delved into it. And so not necessarily that an esports program would have to go to that extreme, like a science fair project extreme. But there are definitely a lot of skills that our kids could get out of an esports program.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting, and we will look into it. We will put all the information in the description. So if you want more information from Isaac or FuseCup, just look in our description. We want to thank Isaac for being here with us today. Yeah, great information. And with the current pandemic and the esports getting bigger, it's a $1 billion industry these days. People all over the world play it. Scholarships are handed out to kids. It's here to stay and it's here to grow. And I think it's ignorant for us not to do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
If we can help our kids, we should at least try. So yeah, thank you, Isaac, again. Great information, and we look forward to competing against you next year in the FuseCup.
Yeah, definitely. All right, take care. Like and subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.